So, so yeah. So we had a look at the spiral tarot. Nice little image. Here's some other images of the star worth noting. This is from the Spirit Keepers Tarot, and it's named the Healer. There's an interesting move, I suppose, or example of one of these secret passages that an artist can form between cards, and this character appears in the Four of Swords in Annabelle Wen's deck. So that's pretty cool. Again, it's fairly standard. You can see this pelican or ibis, which is a reference to thought or thoth. And in these sort of classic decks, both are the Marseille style. Again, we see the same idea of the woman pouring two jugs out into the waters. And of course, one thing that becomes fairly obvious is this image of the breast of the pardon the pun, but the jugs literally as these nourishing sources of flow. And also there's an owl in this one that I quite like. But we can see also with the stars, I mean, what do stars flow along? They flow along the Milky Way. So this mother nourishment imagery is definitely present. And of course, breasts are present in all these cases. Here, of course, is Leonora Carrington's very prominent ibis, beautiful and intriguing image. Okay, I have a few more here. There's one in here that I want to show. I thought it was out there. I'll dig it up. But okay, of course the RWS that we're all familiar with. It's noteworthy to count the rays on the stars, and there happens to be 8 rayed stars, which is acute of the number 64. The I Ching, of course, is 64 hexagrams, and the I Ching has a very circulatory nature, right? The symbols continuously flow into one another. Here we have Visconti's Forza. This is very, this is quite standard. It doesn't have any radical new information. But notice that she's looking up towards the right as opposed to back towards the left, suggesting that this, unlike the previous card, is oriented towards the future rather than the past. And if you think about what setting your sights on a star really means, is it indicates this this dim, the initial gnosis of the sun. It's no longer in your face. It's far off. You almost have to know which one you're set on. There's a different kind of, there's this sense of vast distance between yourself and your goal. Whereas with the sun, there's this idea, oh, I have it already. And, you imagine in some ways the arrogance of youth. Here's a few things, a couple arcana get dropped, and suddenly they think that they are the masters. And it takes quite a while to actually shake yourself of that delusion and realize that the further you put it, the more distant that you're able to see your realization, the more likely that it will become genuine in the process of walking it. Because it's not a matter of something we egoistically possess. In fact, we kind of have to divest ourselves of that notion. All right, so we have this is again the Tarot of the Holy Light, very nice tarot. There's a caduceus in the background, which I like. Again, it's very consonant with the image of the Thoth the image of the ibis. And Elise Ursus star card. You can see the forms. Again, a deck that I admire and feel like I was part of the genesis of. So also feel connected to it in that way. Yeah. So we can see that, and this one, I kind of show this because This is a deck that initially really excited me and that has disappointed me in a couple ways, and I think it's interesting to notice it. It's a big, cool-looking deck. It's called the Tarot of Alchemical. Alchemical Visions Tarot, and it's really beautiful. I mean, look at these collages. My initial disappointment came from when I read the book, and there's all this fancy stuff in these cool languages, and there's not much of an explanation of it. Oh, well, what is this mystic script? Who knows? Maybe the Magus knows. I'm like, well, no. If it means anything, maybe put it in the book so that we can use it, or is it just sort of an allusion to mysticalness? In which case, it's a bit of a pretentious move, right? Okay, so it's a good looking deck. You've got galaxies and so forth in the background. But one thing, in the book, he takes this Hebrew word and he reads it and he says this word says, he doesn't define it, he just says this, and the word in Hebrew, and he spells it from left to right, which is pretty rookie. Anyway, so I was kind of disappointed with that, but it's still there's some. So I think it's a bit of a pretentious deck, to be honest. But I do think it's worth looking at, and it's got some neat textures, and so there certainly are some things about it that come out as decent, right? Nothing's perfect, but yeah, I bring that up, and there was another one I want to show you because so with the Kerry Yale is an intriguing deck in and of itself. The Kerry Yale is the oldest one we have, and it's pretty incomplete. So incomplete that we don't actually know what it was supposed to look like as a whole. So it's been arranged, like we for example, like there's no Hierophant in it, there's no High Priestess in it. We don't know if this is because there was none designed for it, or whether it was the case that there was and it got lost. So we don't actually know what it's supposed to look like. It does appear to have six court cards in each suit, which is unusual. So it's an 84 card deck, especially as packaged. This, I mean, it's huge, which is nice. This is put together by U.S. Playing Card Games, U.S. Playing Card Company, I mean, it's a great production. It's really cool, but they've had to have an artist reproduce many of the cards. I'm looking here for the card that they put in the position of the star, because they've got a card called, they've got three of the virtues, right? Faith, hope, and charity, and those replace the star, the priestess, and the Hierophant. But I think it's kind of fair to say that this version, this does feel like the star. This is, of course, hope, and one of the reasons I bring it up is the anchor is a cool symbol, and it shows up again in the Hanged Man. Although I think the version that shows up in the Hanged Man is part of a reproduction, right? So this looks pretty sure like this is an original, but it's been touched up. But perhaps some of the cards are so worn that they would you get a hint. Oh, it looks like there's an anchor there, so let's let's make a reproduction and keep that element. I think that might be the case. Otherwise, I don't know why they would just randomly throw an anchor in there. Except that there's something I like about the anchor sitting here, because that star does anchor us in a way, and the Hangman is supposed to anchor the character. And there's a certain hope that carries through both of it. So I don't know whether that's part of the original intent of the deck, or whether that's kind of been imposed upon it in the attempt to make this a workable deck. But in either case, it's interesting. So this covers my survey of the star. I'm going to make 2 more videos this week. So you can watch them separately or all at a go, because there's two issues I want to cover. One of them is basically what's going on with the Thoth deck. Why does the Thoth deck differ? If you have a copy, you know that it is not tzadi. Tzadi, of course, is the Hebrew letter meaning fishhook that is typically assigned to the star, but not in the Thoth deck. And there's a reason for this. There is, in fact, a whole philosophical kind of almost an engineering problem that Crowley is addressing, a semiotic engineering problem. And I started with tarot fully embracing this. I eventually came to feel that his solution is not the solution I would take. And I'll shoot a video of it. The issue is basically that in the Book of the Law, we get this line: Tzadi, all the letters of my house are correct, but Tzadi is not the star. So eventually, what he did is he took Tzadi and Hey, and he switched them. And there's some interesting reasons for this. If you read his Book of Thoth, which really anyone studying the Thoth deck really needs to read Crowley's book on it. I don't know why that's not actually considered, like that's not what people do necessarily get a beginner's guide to the Thoth. But you really should just read Crowley if you're going to play with this deck. Tzadi's not the star. He transposes the star Tzadi and Hey, and so Hey, normally assigned to the emperor, is now assigned to the star. This has a lot of consequences for the symbolic total energy of the system, and it's very interesting, even if it's something that I, for example, don't actually adopt. But I think understanding what Crowley's move is about is really, really important. Otherwise, it just ends up being more obscurity, and people don't know why it's there, or they can't explain it. It really should be something that we know and understand. And it's a good test of our knowledge of the simple systems. Anyways, okay, so there's that, and I'm going to leave that for now. And then the other thing I'm going to show you, of course, I talk about stellarization. How do we stellarize is really the question, right? We have this this set of symbols, this tree of life, this tarot, and I talk about making a kind of alchemical conversion between a tree model and a star model. How do we birth a star model, not just theoretically, but in terms of an actual practice? And so I'm going to introduce a figure called the twin star. The twin star was shown to me by a mutational alchemist by the name of Richard Voss, or aka Mithras. And unfortunately, he is no longer with us, but he did teach me a number of cool things. And he was one of the in around 2000, 2001 when I met him. His approach was, I don't know if I'd call it meta-magical, but it had a certain elements of what the approach that I'm taking. So he'd use a lot of magic squares, host symbology on magic squares. He did not play by necessarily traditional rules, but there was a strong logical, mathematical, and mathemagical foundation to his work. And so the twin star was really a crown jewel in his practice, and he shared it with me and some others. And so I'm going to do a video and show you how the twin star works. So I highly recommend you watch both videos, the Thoth deck and the twin star. And the twin star will ultimately lead to a methodology for shifting consciousness from an axial model to a stellar model. And bearing in mind that an axial model has an up-down vector. And in a sense, it implies a forward-backwards model of time. A star has vectors shooting out all around it. It is essentially, a star is free of gravity. it is gravity. The star, the star, and the stellar realization is a realization of the self as a center of gravity within a kind of a textured space of gravitational conduits, if you will. And I mean, what is a black hole? It's kind of a star beyond stars. These organizational nexi. Black hole is a bit of a dark star type thing, and the key is that all these nexi are centers of gravity. And if we're talking about this ripple field, that of course I brought up from last week, there's this sense of perturbations on the fabric or topology of experience and time, and the adept who operates as a star has a type of kind of gravitational influence, creates ripples, if you will, in the experiential field. So that's what I want to give you as a meditation. Thank you for watching. My name is Dr. Peter Duchemin. This is the Force of Life Venus calendar, week 15, the star. So thank you for joining us. If you're not in my course, you should consider it and send me a DM or an email. Thanks again, and check out my other videos.